Welcome to the discussion about balancing innovation and caution in new era of AI. There are some more people coming in. I want to say hello to everyone who's watching live as well, and everyone who will be watching us on YouTube. I have a wonderful guests here today. I won't be the one introducing them because I believe they can introduce themselves the best way anyway. So, gentlemen, may I ask you, one after each other, could you please tell us your name, what do you do, what is your connection to AI?
Yes. So, I am Matthias Ziegler. I'm responsible for technology incubation globally at Accenture and for technology innovation in Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. We are incubating emerging technologies for Accenture and our clients in the past areas like cloud computing, big data, artificial intelligence, or the metaverse. And currently, my team is looking at areas like next generation computing, next generation robotics, bio-innovation, or space innovation. And what all those four have in common is that GenAI will play a crucial role in each of them as well.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Yeah, so my name is Martin Isaacson. I joined Red Hat 1 year ago, and I'm leading the business development of AI here in EMEA. Before joining Red Hat, I used to run an AI startup out of San Francisco, and I've been working with applied research for deep learning and applied deep learning for about a decade. So I've been doing a lot of hands-on building models myself and keep doing it today.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much. Marek?
Thank you. Well, my name is Marek, and I guess the reason why they invited me was that I end up teaching some stuff across the streets at Matfi, so that's perhaps why. But as you can see, I'm wearing this Slido shirt, so it does have a connection. I actually am part of Slido. I used to sort of be the person responsible for all things data there, and now I'm, as Cisco acquired us, now I'm a principal data scientist, whatever that might mean. So I happen to have been around building some stuff with AI and teaching people around it, and even doing a bit of a research on the side as well. So I guess that's why.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We would like to make this discussion as much interactive as possible. So please, we are here for you. All of you, I believe, have your cell phones on you, so please don't wonder and use it. You can send us any question you would like to answer by Slido, so feel free to use it at any time. We will be answering them throughout the discussion, so just feel free to send it at any time. Also, I would like to ask you, there is a special form that you can, where you can reply and where you can give us a feedback about Open Slava 2023 at their website, and you can get some interesting prizes, so go for it, guys. And let's start on a silly note a bit. You guys work with AI, and obviously it is becoming our everyday life now. I would like to know, are you fans of sci-fi? Do you have any sci-fi books or movies that are your favorites?
So one of my favorite books in the area of AI is Clara and the Sun. I don't know if any of you had looked into it. It's a novel, and it is describing how an AI-powered robot is picking up a relation to a young girl, becoming a companion for that girl, how it goes through the ages. And I don't tell you how it ends, but the end was really shaking me, and after that end, you never throw away a technical device anymore that you could think has some feelings.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, my favorite movie is Iron Man. Every time I watch Iron Man, I want to go out to the garage and build a robot or something. I don't have a garage, so I don't have a robot. But I think it's reflecting a little bit of how AI is turning out today, with Jarvis being an AI assistant. We see AI being an assistant in many ways, and when Tony Stark is manufacturing his different devices, he's using AI as an assistant to do that too, and it's reflecting where we're going today.
Very nice, thank you. Marek?
I was thinking of seconding Iron Man for a while. It's part of why I got into this whole field. That's what the spiel of my bio said. I used to still build a few robots here and there, and the reason why I got into AI was that it was obvious I could not program it myself. It's like I'm not that good. So in that sense, that's the fact that you could have an assistant that you dedicate stuff to was part of it. But if I had to choose, it would be Siberiad by Stanislav Lem. It's a Polish author from the book is from 1970s, and it's about two robot builders who sort of end up doing all sorts of a mess. So if I had the book recommendation, that's what I would say. Siberiad, Stanislav Lem. It works. It makes for a great reading.
Thank you very much. I believe many of us who are just getting in touch with AI can feel like we are somehow getting to a sci-fi movie nowadays as well. In 2017, has anyone been here on Open Slava 2017? We were discussing AI as well. Anyone? No. Oh yeah, we have literally one person. Okay, Matthias, you were leading the discussion back then, and I remember Martin Takac, I believe it was, had a beautiful idea that he mentioned at the end of the discussion, where he said that he believes AI will enable us to get rid of a lot of practical stuff that we have to do, so we can enjoy the time instead for being genuinely human and to enjoy life. My question is, are we there already?
Yeah, I think there's twofold answer to that.
Okay.
Because I believe many of the things that we have envisioned at that time do happen already. Like that we can have automation that takes away some tedious tasks that we have to do. Or we are getting towards AI can assist us in certain tasks. The only thing is the third part of that statement that you cited was, will we then enjoy life more or have more leisure time? That is the one I'm not so sure about, and that is actually, it's a choice of us. What do we do with the time that is freeing up? In business, I rather see that we are just increasing our expectations to ourselves or our bosses on us, and that we need to live up to those. But it could be a response if there's a societal consciousness about that we could also use it to have more leisure time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to ask all of you, what is the most significant progress that we got in AI that we have witnessed in the past 6 years, since 2017?
I'd say when ChatGPT went live, because that's the first time when the common man can start playing around with AI, using AI, touching AI. I mean, before that, the chatbot sucked, and you didn't want to use them for anything. People tried to use them for customer service, but it didn't work. So I think for me, that was the big breakthrough. I've seen a lot of generative AI long before that happened, but that was the big breakthrough for me.
I guess I'll try to take the academic head on. I think the big, conceptually big difference now is that while previously we would do things like transfer learning, as in we would have models that would consume a lot of data, and they would sort of build some of their internal knowledge on the data they've seen, and then we would try to fine-tune them for specific use cases, the specific tasks we would want, and therefore sort of changing their internals. With ChatGPT, well, it's not necessarily ChatGPT, but large language models and their concept of in-context learning, meaning I'll show you a couple of examples in the prompt itself. The model doesn't change, yet I can tailor it to do specific things in specific scenarios, specific context. That's big. It's big because the whole deployment story gets completely different. The whole operational story around it, the monitoring around it gets completely different. And most importantly, we now have English as a programming language to a great extent, perhaps even other languages as well. So that to me is really perhaps the first time where few-shot learning, as we would call it, has become practically useful. Previously, it was more of an academic gimmick, and you could get a PhD, but it wouldn't be something you would use in practice all that much.
I agree and have nothing to add.
Very well, thank you. Can you share maybe some groundbreaking applications of AI that we use nowadays when it comes to Accenture or Red Hat projects or even academic research?
Well, maybe if I start for Accenture, people here know that we are very strong in services delivering to our customers. Some of those services are computer-based, so include programming. And as I alluded to in my keynote earlier, programming is a task where ChatGPT can go long ways and help you a lot. And I see that really revolutionizing the way how we can build software. And just talking to my global lead yesterday, he even told me about that there are now some programs that while they are running, you can interact with them, and based on the interaction, they are morphing themselves into how do you want to have them. Yeah, so you totally take the programming cycle out of the loop, but you're interacting directly with the software, not just for the things that you want to do with the software, but also modifying to better do what you want. And I think that is really a bold future that will impact a lot on how we serve our customers.
Thank you, Martin.
Well, at Red Hat, we don't develop models ourselves. We develop software to build models. We have one commercial offering where it's called Ansible Lightspeed, which makes it possible to have sort of like a co-pilot for coding, but for Ansible specifically. But if you don't look at the commercial side, there's a lot of engineers within Red Hat that are doing AI all the time and building all types of models, playing around with what's out there in open source. And I think what I'm seeing the most, and that's what I predicted a couple of years ago, is that you're using AI for knowledge management, make it easier to retrieve information from your knowledge base.
Marek?
This is such a difficult question to answer. So, like, again, thinking of it, taking it again academically, it's like, what's revolutionary? Like at which point do you sort of see something as revolutionary? One of my big heroes, Alan Kay, I guess you might have heard the name. He was a big pioneer of graphical user interfaces, object-oriented programming, but also he's behind this language called Smalltalk, which you might have heard about. Basically said, well, AI that's the things we don't know how to do well yet. So like if we take that definition and sort of go from, okay, what were the things we didn't really know how to do well yet and might not still know how to do well yet, but still it seems an interesting jump has happened. There's so much stuff to talk about. So I'll get like go to like 3 examples. The code generation I would certainly agree with. The interesting parts, at least to me, academically, are things like self-debugging, where the model itself sort of sees the kind of function definition or the definition of a problem, generates the code, and at the same time sort of self-corrects the code, similar to what Matthias was suggesting. That's something I didn't think would happen in like this year. Is if we are gonna take it that way. I used to do and still do a bit of work on summarization, for instance. Summarization seems to be a solved problem for many, in the sense that if you have people summarize an article and a large language model summarize an article and then have independent judges pick one or the other, the LLM summarizations turn to be better, or at least more preferred in some areas. So it seems like some specific, and this was a big topic in natural language processing. Some specific parts of the whole field are really revolutionized, and then there is a whole field out there of many other, non-computer science things that I think are ripe for disruption, and we will only see that. We just mentioned, say, many of the protein language models that will probably be the future of creating drugs that will be very tailored to specific problems, or things like using LLMs to navigate robots and things like that. But so I think it's too many to list, is what I would say.
How can generative AI contribute to data analysis and decision-making processes within the corporate businesses and corporate environment?
Well, when we take decisions, we want to take informed decisions, right? And if we want to take better decisions, we want to be more informed. And what AI can do is to help us be more informed. So as a more practical example, if I want to come up with a decision for something, I want to know a lot about this specific area, I have to go through a Google deck, a couple of emails, try to find them, some Slack chats, a Gchat, wherever we communicate these days. And if we have a smart knowledge base or an AI, we can get all these insights very easily, very quickly, and we can take better informed decisions.
Gentlemen, anything to add?
Well, I hope it doesn't on its own. I hope we still end up being in the driving seat. As in, I strongly hope at least in the current implementation, I could easily see it generating some sort of background information for you to take a decision, but I'd be very uneasy with it generating anything that resembles a decision a person would then take, mostly because we happen to know how these generations come about, and the hallucinations are still relatively prevalent. So in that sense, I hope it sort of helps with the background part, but not with the take ownership of the decision part.
What I could imagine too is that GenAI could be used to list more alternatives. Very often as humans, we have something already in mind and then we are blind for other alternatives. But if we get a list and we suddenly discover, well, not just our 3 ideas, but there are 2 others, and actually by looking a bit deeper into it, they're actually quite viable. And I think that opening up the search space is something I could also envision GenAI could help us with.
Thank you very much. Let's just check the questions we got from the audience. The first one is, why does ChatGPT struggle with generating a poem where all words start with the letter A? All of you laughing, I like that.
Yeah, well, I tried to do a poem actually I wanted to include it in the keynote, there was not room enough, so I tell you here. For the 85th birthday of my dad, I thought as the eldest son, I'm kind of obliged to give some kind of speech. So I was collecting from all my siblings the inputs of things we positively remember and so on. I wanted to create a poem out of it that then I could present. And I was giving ChatGPT all sorts of inputs, all the inputs I got from my siblings. And I was searching for a poem that has the right format. There's even a melody on it, so it needed to be exact that format, so it fits the melody. And I gave ChatGPT everything, but it just sucked. So with the letter A, that sounds like an even simpler problem than mine. I was also surprised. I was torn between, am I just such a bad user of it? Do I need to brush up my skills of doing better triggering it, or is it just bad?
I was trying to get a poem from ChatGPT as well. And I remember, Marek, in one discussion you've mentioned it too, and you compared it to Slovak rap songs, am I right? That it's about average.
Yeah, it's about
quality.
It's about of that quality. Yeah, in Slovak, when you end with the infinite verb with ch towards the end, you can and dávať and so on. So like in general, there's like in that sense it would generally work. In here my counter question would be, have you tried GPT-4? And I'll happily go deeper into this, but the exact same problem Matthias discussed. We actually do use it, even at Slido. We have this crazy ukulele orchestra. It's a long story. But we go and do sort of cover versions of songs for our friends who get married and things like that. It actually does work. To some extent, you still have to kind of massage it into thinking that it makes sense to generate stuff like that. But it's not. I wouldn't say it didn't work at all. But it's interesting. I guess the game we are playing is what was in the training data, and we have no idea. And so like that's why it's hit and miss.
So may I take that I want a learning session with you on how to do better?
Any time. This sort of stuff, that's what I do academia for. I'm sorry.
I'd like to join that one as well. Do you agree that we are just starting to be more efficient but not working less? Matthias, I believe that's something that you've addressed before. Do you agree that we are just starting to be more efficient but not working less?
Yes, that at least I see that coming. That with raising tools, just expectations raise too. Yeah. So I still remember when I was writing my first school exit thesis, and at this time you already were the king if you were able to use LaTeX. Well, some of you students might still know that. And you will suddenly be able to produce a document that was perfectly typed in typesetting. But now, well, people in the fifth form, or maybe even in elementary school, we expect that they produce PowerPoint presentations that are perfectly looking and have the right styles because they have the tools to support them with that. And so just expectations are going up, and I see that happens too. And there was one adjacent question to that we are asked as we are in consulting as well. If tools like ChatGPT will just be replacing us because customers would just query directly the ChatGPT and getting good results out of it. But based on my own experience, I figured out the tools are best if they are in the hands of capable people, and both working together are just unbeatable. But out of just one single one, you don't get the same results. But with that, in the future, I think I see many colleagues already are using it just to brush up their results, to fill gaps they might have, to be better in programming. And with that, certainly expectations are going up. And they're not just finish at 12 because they are twice as fast. They continue working at 800 and better please the customer.
Well, I'd say in an optimal world, the AI remove all dull and boring tasks that we have, and it will allow us to be creative. And that's the only thing we have to be. And they say that in theory, we only have a couple of hours, maybe 4 hours of creativity per day. So if AI were doing optimal work, you should only have to work a couple of hours per day. And then you can go take a walk or something, I don't know. But we're not there yet. So right now, I think people are trying to collaborate with AI. It doesn't work as we expect it to. And I guess this also depends who you are. Right now, it feels like we're only talking about people in tech. I don't know how that applies to someone working in farming, for example. But yeah.
I guess I would agree in general. There is a, I'm not sure where does this proverb come from. There's a proverb I remember along the lines of, everyone has their problems. Some have, cold soup, and some have small diamonds. So in that sort of a sense, it's going to be similar in here. And the second you become more efficient, I'm not sure if that's going to transfer to working less necessarily. I would generally agree with the expectations rising. There also might be that the tedious parts will end up being sort of more interesting in the sense that you will have some sort of a co-pilot helping you out with that. I think the change that could happen, partially that could happen, would be something on your own. You would, more than a writer, you would be the editor of sort of checking the output. Hopefully, one would hope that that's going to happen.
Another question is, do you agree that, now it's jumping, I'm sorry. Do you believe AI will positively impact our children in terms of education and social interaction, or rather be a barrier?
So that's interesting. That's an interesting question, because the future of education, when we talk about how AI will impact the future of education, we talk about personalized learning and other things like automation of gradings to make the teachers' lives easier as well. But if we would have like an AI tutor, for example, that would be the perfect tutor for a child. And that means that child can learn anything by itself with that AI tutor better than it could in school. But then it comes to the question that why are we in school? Is it only to learn specific topics, or is it maybe something else? So already right now with social media, which is something where we've seen AI for a long time, and when we say AI, we don't think about social media, but that's why we're so hooked to social media. It's because of AI, and it's making the human species more lonely and lonely for every year. So with AI in the future of education, we have to be really careful, I think, how it will impact us as being social with another and learning things that is not about specific topic only.
I agree with that, and I think it's a twofold question. So in education and social interaction, I think, like you said, that AI can contribute a great deal to better educating our children in certain subjects. But school is much more than that. It's actually social interaction that you learn in school and that you learn when you're not on the subject. And so by having Gen AI help us to sort out the educational part first, or learning certain things, I hope it would free up more time for teachers actually interacting with the people and serving as a role model or engaging with them in a discussion, which are things maybe the Gen AI can less well support. So indirectly, it would also help improve social interaction, while I not believe Gen AI itself would improve social interaction.
Thank you.
I would generally agree with all that was said, but I categorically refuse to do any predictions here. The jury is still out, and it's so difficult to do anything but a thought experiment. So let's do a thought experiment. Take that question, scratch AI, and put Google there, and put yourself 10 years ago, to your own shoes 10 years ago. What would you say? Has it had positive impact on our children in terms of education and social interaction, or rather be a barrier? That's in the eye of the beholder. Okay, not Google. That might be too, that might be too much. Let's say Wikipedia. Did it have positive impact on our? So I feel like it's a sort of a loaded question in that term, and it will be sort of it will be interesting to see it play out, but it's difficult to say one way or another right now. I do think that quite a bit of caution would do us well. Would be very helpful here.
Like one once famously said, predictions are particularly difficult, especially if they are about the future.
Indeed. Especially when you're on a court, but...
So let's just turn off the cameras and have a discussion offline then. Next question is there some bottleneck in the current way of developing these LLM models? Are we going to run into some wall which will not permit the development of new and more powerful models at the current rate?
Well, I think it depends on the use case that we're using the LLM for. But let's say just for the convenience, I think the most obvious one is for just generating text. The bottleneck would be the data and the quality of the data that we're working with. But I also think it's interesting to keep in mind that, like the large language models we're talking about right now, all bits on an architecture called transformers, and there are startups and research institutes out there working on finding other types of model architectures, like a newly created startup called Sakana AI, that's led by one of the most famous AI researchers in the world, David Ha, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they can create and what comes out of there. But that would make this question irrelevant if they come up with something new. So, but yeah, to answer the question straight up, data.
Okay, I'll give you the professor's answer. So there is a bit of research that suggests we might run out of text. That literally, as a human race, we will not produce enough text for these language models that would be of significantly higher size or significantly larger size to consume. It turns out GPT-3, for instance, was undertrained. It only saw 540 gigabytes of text, I believe. It could have gotten to trillions at least to 1 terabyte or 1 trillion tokens in there, and that's at least what the sort of research looks like. So if it really is only increasing the size and having it seen more and more of the internet, we might really run out of text. So in that sense, yes, that's possible, and yes, that's why I think a completely different approach is certainly warranted, as Martin suggested.
And wasn't there already some articles writing that the performance of ChatGPT is going down because it starts reading only text produced by itself, and so is deteriorating?
It's another big question. To what extent can the outputs of large language models sort of poison the well for our future training, for instance? But then again, are we really seeing in this particular instance, are we seeing the degradation of quality? That's again, I don't really know, but there is a counter research sort of study that was done that would have found different prompts that would still do those things. So like it's difficult to say, but it certainly is for people who want to do science in the great way, in the way it was done, as an implication after implication. It's very difficult to sort of base your future study based on something like this. You have very little ways of doing a reproduction there. So yes, it's a big problem, and I think we are running into a wall. We are saying it right now.
Yeah. And one more thing I could imagine becoming a bottleneck is actually the humans doing those LLM models. In the sense that I believe it's still very important that we not just set them up and let them run and learn alone, but there should be some kind of, by the researchers or by the creators of those models, an interaction, a control, a governance of looking at, are they really doing what we want them to do? Have we come up with what we want GenAI-like tools to do and what not? And are we able to build that in? And that leads us to the area of, well, how to deal with that ethically. What results do we expect a GenAI to produce and what not? What would we like to prohibit if we can? Yeah, it's maybe difficult. Yeah? And so all those interactions, I think, that require humans could either slow down the development, or if they not slow it down, could result in an uncontrolled outspurt of unwanted behavior eventually.
Let's do another question. What AI tools besides ChatGPT are you using?
Well, I tried ChatGPT like a year ago, no, like 8 months ago, when I worked on a side project and I started coding, and I got so frustrated, I think I threw out the laptop through the window several times, so I stopped using it. Other than that, I don't use any AI tools, to be honest.
Okay. Marek?
Oh, it's such a long list. So it again, the definition would be difficult. Like even the definition of AI tools is very difficult for me. What is something that traces your route from here to the train station an AI tool? It was at least 30 years ago. So I guess it's tough to say, but taking sort of generative AI view in here, I encourage you, if you can, to play with Claude. That's the alternative to sort of ChatGPT from Anthropic. There's a splinter group from OpenAI. And their approach is a bit different and a bit more, I guess, grounded, if we want to call it that in a single word. So I would say that. If you are a programmer, I think it does make sense to try out GitHub Copilot, at least for the sake of having your own experience with it, not just seeing articles that will tell you is either rubbish or it will put you out of the job. So that's what I would say. And then I guess it very much depends on what what your use case is. Mine is often things like. Can we do many of these things that happen, and that's based on my research, can we do many of these things that happen to work on ChatGPT in multilingual way? So can it do the same things in other languages as well? So then I would use various other models that are usually open source. So what I wanted to say is there is a whole slew of open source models you can use. It doesn't have to be ChatGPT if you don't want to.
Yeah, and some tools we might even be using, as you also alluded to, without even knowing. It might be under the hood, and so we are not actively saying, let's use some GenAI now. It's just built in.
Martin, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just thinking with just exactly that. I think that's how we're going to see AI in the future. It's just like we saw what happened when the internet came around, like we're having the discussions around AI right now. They had a similar discussions around the internet. And if you look like Google or YouTube search for some of them with Bill Gates, it's really funny how they mock him about the internet, and think it will take over the world and kill everyone. And there are similar discussions around AI right now. But yeah, I think AI is the same magnitude of a big change happening like the internet was. So like if you compare internet 20 years ago, was it a big thing? No, but it is now, and it's a lot of content on the internet right now. We can do a lot of things with the internet right now. So AI is just starting now. In 20 years, it's going to be hugely different, and AI tools will be in everything that we touch. So as humans, when we evolve, like when I grew up, I was taught that technology is technology and human are humans. But what I'm starting to realize is that as human evolves, technology is becoming a part of us. That's the new evolution of human being, in my opinion.
I guess it fits perfectly to the next question. Let's see the dark side. How perfect of the jobs will be affected on the next 10 years, and how can people adapt to changes in this short time?
Well, that is a difficult question with affected. What does that mean? I think everything is going to be affected. But to what degree, it also depends in what area, and yeah, it's a lot of depends for me in that question.
Yeah, we created a study, well, typical consultant reaction, about this across all our clients and the industries, and we figured out the more a industry is language driven and the things that they deal with are described in language or interpretable in language, the more they will be affected. So at the top of the list was the financial services industry with banking and insurance, where those products typically there's a ledger describing them and so on, and they're communicated to customers and then they make a decision and so on. And so you probably saw the example in my keynote how customer service can be affected. So we saw very strong impact there. But then, as you said, it will go through all the industries in some way. Every industry will be impacted, and I believe people will be able to adapt. Some jobs might vanish, but others will be creating. We are watching that space actually quite a lot, introducing new technologies all the time over the past 20 years. So far, we always saw that even though some jobs were vanishing, in the end there was work enough for everybody.
So I mean, as I said previously, my policy is no predictions here. So I guess I'll only give you a story, which is more of a as an economist, I'll quote The Economist. There was a study of 251, I think, job roles that were supposed to go extinct by in the next 50 years. The study was done in 1970, and out of the 251 jobs, the only job that actually ended up being really extinct in this particular case was the elevator boy, the sort of the guy who would, press the button for you, which used to be the case previously. I don't want to make fun of the question, it's not the point. What I wanted to say by that is that it's extra difficult to see whether we will be, whether some jobs will really vanish, but I don't see us having lack of work, although the question certainly makes sense to ask, but I don't feel all that, qualified to provide you anything but a crazy story here.
Can organization actually use AI to create some reskilling, upskilling programs for for employees to prepare for what's coming in the future with AI?
Well, there's actually one startup we are already working with called Skyhive, which is doing exactly that. They are analyzing all the CVs of the people available in the company. With one model, with another model, they analyze trends that are existing currently. Then they determine the gap, and then they have a database of trainings. And so, out of the gap, they determine what trainings to take and give a recommendation to the HR department how to upskill their people. So, such things can be done.
Matthias, I believe this is a question for you. The video of Insurance Assistant from Keynote was impressive. However, transfer from proof of concept to enterprise application, working with client-sensitive data, with all the regulations, governance, and security is another level. How far are we from seeing such applications in enterprise world?
Well, maybe now I start sticking to Marek's approach to predicting the future. but at least giving it a try. Well, as I said in my keynote, the puzzle pieces are all there. Certainly the comment is totally right. You need to overcome those regulations, governance, and so on. But when I think back, in 2012, I also was cloud computing lead when this was still an emerging tech. And I was also talking to banks, and they said, never ever will we use cloud computing. That does just not work with our governance, with our regulations, and so on, and data privacy. It's not a topic for us. Well, now we are about a bit more than 10 years later, and the banks and insurance companies are one of the most prominent users of cloud computing, and they found how to adapt. And also, if you recall the citation that I was making, that we overestimate how we can apply a technology on the short run, but underestimate how it is on the long run, I think that also applies here. So we will find the ways around, and the applications will rather come quicker than slower, in my expectation. Hope that helps at least as a bit as an answer.
And how can AI technologies actually improve data protection and users' privacy in digital platforms in general?
We can create smarter encryption and anonymize data before we start training them on the models on the data. Then in specific cases where data is sensitive, we can use techniques like federated learning, like if you used Google Home Assistant or Siri or something like that. You can keep training the models at the edge without actually sending the data from your own speech up to the central model and keep improving the model that way. But that's only for specific use cases, of course. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to add there.
I guess one of the things I can add is that sort of an underutilized or not all that often mentioned concept that's I think will become pretty big in the next couple of years is to use these things, well, let's call it AI models, or if we want to go ChatGPT way, large language models, for syntactic data generation. So oftentimes you sort of need some sort of data to still train your model, or at least fine-tune your model on, or at least to work within your problem domain. But if you are in a highly regulated environment in any way, or you work with private information of your customers, there's no way that's going to ever end up in those models. Having something that will let you sort of generate very similar data that's obviously made up by definition, or we all hope made up by definition, is a big enabler. And we are seeing that in our problems at Slido, for instance, or in larger Cisco as well.
Matthias, you wanted to? No? Okay. Next question is, when do people stop calling ChatGPT dumb? How many years will it take for it to become AGI?
Well, these are two questions. I think the second one I leave to Marek.
I think he's ready.
The first one, that reminds me of a cartoon I once said I still love. It's showing a computer and a human sitting in front of the computer, and then you have these bubbles, the thinking bubbles, and in each of them is written the same text. Why is this thing slow? And I think it's the same thing here. If ChatGPT could think, it would probably express the same for the ones that are trying to prompt it. Yeah? It's just we're operating on different levels. So it's for sure in some sense not dumb, but for us it's somehow when it's not giving the right responses. Yeah.
Marek?
I guess Martin should add something.
Well, I just called it dumb, so. But like the models we use today, as we know them, can never be close to AGI. Like that's something we need to understand here. Like we're not even close to AGI. The models we have today, they can do specific tasks very well. You can simulate or emulate, like fake that a model can do a lot of things by combining multiple models into a system, write software around it, and pretend it's better than what it is. But to go to AGI, where it should even come close to being human-like, it's like the structure we have of the models, the way we're training them, it's not even close. I don't know how long.
We have reached the capacity of an insect right now with those models, didn't we?
Well, it depends on how you sort of measure that. But if you went on the neural level, so how many neurons does it have in a brain? Yes, we are close to that with. Well, it's also.
Which one?
I'm sorry.
Which one insect?
I'm sorry. I don't know offhand, but it's sort of some small bug, I believe.
It's a fruit fly, I think.
Something like that. The problem with that is that the dumbness of ChatGPT again is in the eye of the beholder, I believe. Whatever it produced for Martin might have been fairly interesting to me, you know. And it's like whether I would call it dumb, I don't really know. My general answer will be whenever it stops being AI. The second we know how to do it well, it's not going to be dumb. It's going to be understood, and I guess it will take time to get. And I 100% agree with the concept of we are very far from AGI. Plus, my policy of not doing predictions. So there you go.
What are your tips on writing better prompts?
I'm the one taking the class with Marek, so I think he should answer.
That's a different sort of a lecture. So I'm not sure we have time for that. The standard tip would be, it depends very much on the model. It depends very much on the task you're trying to do. It depends very much on what's your expected output and things like that. Some of these models, especially the GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, sort of the chat-based models, for them it does help to say things like, suppose you are doing math problems, you are a famous MIT professor of mathematics. It turns out to help for things like mathematical reasoning and things like that. So I don't really think I have a very general tip I can give you. I can give you my sort of an approach. Before this was cool, we used to call these things machine learning, and machine learning has a sort of general concepts. It goes around. The concept of having a sort of your training set, your test set, and your sort of validation set on which you sort of train the model, in our case prepare the prompt, and then evaluate the prompt, that's very, very helpful. You need to see how your sort of prompt will work on a specific out of sample or things it didn't really see in training or you didn't see when you were preparing it in training examples. So I would say a sort of a sound approach to, you know, trying out how the model will work is how I would go about it. But again, it depends. If you are putting it together for like a product, then do use what I just talked about. If you are trying to put together a refund form where they ask you for a whole PDF of sort of, you know, summarizing why this shoe is without shoelaces, I mean, go with the first thing that comes to mind is what I would say.
So one tip, when I was asking around, I got from colleagues was that you can even use ChatGPT to help you generate better prompts. So for example, if you want to create an image in Midjourney and you're not sure on how to describe it in a way so that the image looks better, you can ask ChatGPT, say, well, I want to create this and this image. How should the prompt look like so that the image is really nice and fulfilling these and these criteria? And then it proposes you 3 different types of prompts that you can try out in Midjourney on the other side. And it works incredibly well.
Just to add, when I was sharing the questions that I had ready for guys today, Matthias actually asked me if I asked ChatGPT to give me the questions for the discussion panel. I did not, but I believe it will come up with some really interesting ones. I will try it the next time. Let's do some more questions. Do you think future AI landscape will be defined by a few big, expensive foundational models or many small ones?
Sounds to me like an open source company-based question.
Yes. Well, I hate to say the word depends all the time, but it really depends what we mean with small here, right? Like, the models are going to become smaller, but a 7 billion parameter model is still pretty big to me. Again, I come from the classic machine learning, so they were really small back then. I hope that we will have more and more small models that can become better. They will have higher performance because the large foundation models, they're really tricky and difficult to work with in inference when you want to use them for production. You mean actual use case. Like we talked about how we can create better prompts recently. If you add too many prompts, it slows down the inference for production as well, and you can't use it either. So like we have to be really careful with the size and if we actually want to use the models for something valuable, or if it's just for research, this is cool kind of stuff. But yeah, open source models will be the future, or should be the future, because that's how we have transparency, which is very much needed. Like that should be one of the ethical guidelines we want to follow. And with that we'll follow like accountability, as we have seen with any kind of software we have ever seen it throughout history. It's always accountability and transparency. But yeah, I don't have a perfect answer to that question.
I personally believe it will not be either or. You will have a couple very large models that will be just behind some software or websites that we are using. Like for example for search, which will be really big, but then there will be specialized applications that some of our clients might have, where we would help them building a dedicated foundation model for that particular purpose, where a much smaller one will perfectly suffice. And so I believe they will just coexist.
I guess the only thing I would add is that the keyword for me there is the expensive foundational models. The problem with them really is, even though they might show a very interesting performance and things we didn't really think would be possible and hence be revolutionary, they are very expensive to the extent that Microsoft itself admits that it's losing money on many users that play with GitHub Copilot, for instance, and similar games seems to be. Similar stuff seems to be coming out of OpenAI as well. So I think just the economics of it will push us to a place where it's not going to be well either or, exactly as Matthias discussed. It's probably going to be both, but it also doesn't seem like the kind of proliferation of sort of large models will be all that high. There is a whole whole space of specific problems that you can solve with a specific model, and for that having a smaller model that's very effective and very efficient is probably the way to go, even right now.
I think I recall I recently read also an article that they are trying to make some of the existing models smaller, but still coming to the same good quality of results. So that could also be a way that...
Indeed. The concept is called knowledge distillation, where you're trying to have a teacher that's a bit bigger in expense, let's call it, and you're trying to have the student sort of mimic the teacher, so that it's very, very similar. The problem there is that since we don't exactly know how it works on the inside, it's only going to be as good as the sort of benchmarks you are trying it on, and in there's a limited amount. So it's a difficult problem to go to, but I think that's exactly the reason why we need open source models. Mostly because even if you are OpenAI, the hottest startup on this planet, you will never ever have the brain power of the sort of all of the open source enthusiasts, which ended up being the big revelation of, say, the Linux and the open source movement in general. So in addition to transparency and not doing this game of what was probably in the training data, with open models we generally know, or like we have at least a better shot of knowing, there's way too many advantages, for me at least, for it to be ignored.
I'm trying to answer all of your questions. So, will AI ever be a president?
Of what? Of a university? I don't know. Well, I guess. That's the difficult question. I hope not. If it's a university, I'm probably not going to be employed there. Is what I would say.
The question is, will it be a better president? And I think some companies, or was it a state, were already experimenting having an AI-based advisor. That was even before the age of Gen AI, and they had this on the board officially and announced it, and that was a big story. And that actually, I think, is rather the question. I think we still have humans in those positions, but the question is, how will their advisory board look like, and how much will it make use of Gen AI to gain better insights? Earlier we asked the question of how can we make better decisions? Well, if you're in such leading positions, it's all about making the right decisions, taking all the things into account that are important, and not just overseeing something, forgetting something, or being biased to some direction. And so I would rather say, will there be governments that will not be advised by AI in the future? That, I think, would be the question.
Nice one. I like this approach. Tell me, dear friend, if you would, how does Slido's rhyme mode sound so good? With lines that flow and words that twerk, can you explain this rhyme mode perk?
That's nice.
Matthias, what do you say?
It ends with a question mark, but it's not really a question. So it's a funny comment highlighting what is possible. So it's very nice.
Is it better than the
thank you
poem,
for entering it.
than the poem that you got when you were trying to figure something out?
Well, this is actually one of the features you can try in Slido right now, if you really want to. It's sort of make it rhyme. The make it rhyme feature, which we have next to the questions. I guess the question is like, would you want something like this being answered at a panel? Probably not, but it's one of the things that we are playing with. So when I say I think some of the sort of rhyme generation might sort of work, this is where it comes from. We kind of have it even in the product these days.
7 questions to go, guys. Are you ready? Okay. Do you think Gen AI will split society between people who can use the AI tools and those who can't?
Definitely there's the danger for that. And this is actually not a new problem with Gen AI. This is the divide that we see already on the globe for quite some time, where some actions, one laptop per child was an initiative, for example, that some years ago was tried to close that divide. And I totally believe that like we had, being able to read was such a divider in the past. Being able to know how to use a computer is another one. And in the future, AI literacy will be one on top of that. And it's really important that we help educate society, educate kids to be knowledgeable, how to use it, what to do with it, and what not. And we, as Accenture, we try to give our contribution to that back to society. There's a lot of courses that we are teaching where explicitly we are going after parts of the society that don't have equal access like we have to all the wealth of information and higher education. And for sure we will do that also in the area of AI.
Thank you.
I don't think I have much to add to that one. I think it was very well said. Had a funny discussion with a couple of friends during lunch now, where we discussed like in the future when AI is everywhere and everything is connected to the internet and everything is technology more or less. And then if something just shut it down, we will not know how to do anything, like for the future generations, I mean. And the only people that would be able to be survived, the one that would come out stronger, are the one in more developing countries, or that have not been the one using AI in that sense, or being more non-digital, which is just a very far future thought, but it's interesting, I guess.
Not much to add.
Okay. If you have some health, if you have some health issues, would you prefer AI to make a diagnosis or a doctor? Assume the AI is well trained and has the best accuracy possible.
Well, it should be, the AI should be assisting the doctor. That's how it should be, always. And that's how it is today.
Yeah, I think we are back to decision making that we were discussing before as well.
And This reminds me to a story that I recently read on the internet about a mother of a little child that she ran from doctor to doctor and nobody was able to find the diagnosis, and she got all these reports, and what she finally did was typing all those every little detail of these reports into ChatGPT, asking for what could that be, and then she got a hint of what kind of disease that could be that no doctor so far came to the idea of, and he then found another one, went to that doctor saying, could that be that? And it was confirmed. Yeah. So that is, as a human doctor, you're limited by what you have seen. And so that's why some are really famous and everybody tries to reach them, but they have limited capacity. They are just human. And so for that, GenAI could help. And I agree to it, GenAI should be the assistant. You don't want to make the decision, the final decision. This is a decision by ourselves as humans, that we want a human to decide over such things. Yeah? But on the contrary, well, we are in the good situation living in a country where we have very well access to doctoral advice. But if you are somewhere where you just can't get to one, either because you can't pay it or you don't have insurance or it's too far away, I would rather take into consideration talking to a GenAI and giving me an advice that I still can decide then what to do with it.
I guess I would be only, I generally again agree, and I would only sort of take the question to a different direction. Would I prefer a doctor or a doctor who has some, AI-based helper on their side, assuming it was well trained and as accurate as possible? I'd almost certainly go with the latter and would make the decision, the final call at the very least, myself. I'm very happy that's even possible these days. Exactly as was mentioned, there's a doctor would generally sort of take their battery of tests, and that would be it. That's how the, we haven't found anything sort of comes about with the sort of possibilities of nuances being done by something like AI. I think it's all like if you still keep yourself in the driving seat, I think we are not losing much. On the contrary, we can only gain.
I believe that's the part on the ethical side of the usage of AI.
I just like to add something to that one as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening right now within biomedicine and biology. There's a huge wave coming now with startups as well. You can read about them in the news. They're raising $100 or $200 million because it takes a lot of funds to create this sort of efforts, because you need not only computer scientists and AI researchers, you need the biochemistry people and everyone that knows biology. You need every people in the same company. You need a real lab where you can create the data that you can train them all on. With that said, in the future, how I see it is that we will have a digital twin that is exactly a copy of the human body, and you can feed it with a sample of yourself with like saliva or something and get your DNA, so it becomes personalized, and you can do drug discovery on this digital twin. So you can have the drug discovery companies having AI algorithms continuously iterating on these digital twins. And in that way you can have vaccines for any disease that exists in the future. And this is in the future, but I hope it's not too far in the future.
Before or after AGI?
Before.
Next question is, are the summaries generated by the AI somehow biased by the opinion of the developer or solution owner?
I guess that's to me, so let me take it. Thank you for the question, Jacob. It's like this. Even if you generate a summary, it's probably going to be biased by your opinions and your views. So in that sense, it certainly will be biased in some way. Some bias we even want. We don't want it to ignore important information, for instance, right? Like that's also a form of, if we take it in the technical sense, there's also a form of bias. So I would say yes, certainly. And then the question ends up being, is it, even if it's biased, and we agree on that, is it still helpful to some extent or not? And to what extent do we find it helpful? And it turns out that when you go on the sort of, when you try to grade the summaries on things like factuality or the amount of information it actually captured, it turns out to be oftentimes at least on the level, or sometimes even better than what a human would generate. Again, the big question there is what human? Average human of the street, someone who was trained for it. And it's like that there are nuances there, but in general, I do agree. It would be biased.
Let's skip to the next one as we're slowly running out of time. When can we expect the businesses to take the risks to feed their businesses data to ChatGPT? In some industries, we can see the resistance to share, for example, their SDK, even with browser stack. Martin, you seem to be struggling.
It's a long question. Well, I say I don't know.
Can we call the audience joker, maybe? None?
No, I guess we're not getting this card now. Oh, we have one. Could we get a... Would you like to join the conversation with us for this one? Can we maybe get... I guess we will get another question on a Slido then. Okay, in that case, let's just skip to the next one. What is your opinion on the technical feasibility of limiting what people can use AI for? Aren't the legal regulatory attempts destined to fail, especially in the internet era open source world?
Yeah, I wonder if this question comes from the nice colleague I discussed this over lunch with. And the answer is no. Okay, so my opinion is it's still important to introduce those technical barriers or walls, even though they can be circumvented. So, like we discussed it over lunch, is that all those barriers that you put in, they can be somehow circumvented. Everything that's found on the internet and has been ingested into such a model with whatever mechanisms you build in, and there are plenty, yeah? Once it's in there, somebody will find a way to get it out there. The question just is, how difficult do you make it? So that it's not, at least not spreading too easily or everywhere. Somebody who is evil enough, wanting to know something, wanting to know how to build a bomb or how to do 3D print a machine gun, they will find the information. If they find it in ChatGPT or somewhere else. So the information is out there and can be found, but we don't want it to spread too easily, so that not every school child, when it's unhappy with a mark got from the teacher, runs to the solution. Yeah? But you can't avoid it totally. So I think it's important rather to work on societal norms that, like I made the comparison in my keynote, that it is a tool like a knife, and it could be used for evil or good purposes, and the same is here. So it's more important that we work on how we as humans actually approach it. And there's a lot of education to be done, a lot of new norms that need to be developed, that exist for simple things. If I not push Michael, because that's things we just not do. But on the internet, such norms still are evolving. Everybody who has been trolled in some chat knows that. And certainly in AI, this applies too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, especially like if we talk about this scenario of creating a bomb. I mean, when we created the internet, it made it easier for people to create bombs. And whatever ChatGPT or some other Gen AI tool is, it's basically a nicer interface to retrieve this information and just make it easier to get it. It's all about accountability as human beings. What do we do with this information? What do we do with these sort of tools that we get? And I think it's even better to have them open source, because then we have the transparency and we know what's out there.
It's the only thing I would add. Yeah, I don't think the AI models equals nuclear weapons sort of equivalency is helpful in any way. It's although I get where it comes from, I think it's two different things, and in a specific sense, very difficult to have a nuclear bomb open source. So I would say in that sense, yes, any open source effort that can help us with transparency is something we should support. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do you think AI models will be in the hands of big companies or open source communities in the future?
Well,
open source communities.
Before I hand over to Martin on that, I would say they will be everywhere.
Yeah, and I think there is a startup called Hugging Face. They're the world's biggest or largest AI community out there, and what they're pushing on, their vision is to make all AI open source, that it should be there for the rest of the future, and I think it's great. And you know, coming from Red Hat, the largest open source company in the world, we see the same thing with software. It should be open source as well, but I think it's especially important for AI models. Otherwise, we will have this sort of things happening that we see right now. We have OpenAI and other proprietary companies trying to scare among the audience and get politicians to put in weird regulations that shouldn't be there so that they can win over the competition. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Is Hugging Face still a startup?
Startup's definition is how fast it grows. I think so, but I don't know. It's a good question. It's worth $4 billion.
I said that's what I was wondering. Like, at which point you are a scale up or a, and anyhow, I think I'm sorry for the jibe. My take is very similar to Martin's. I don't think the kind of the fear mongering is helpful in any way. And I would straight up go to the next question as well, which is that I think the question is not like the only question is when. And although I'm categorically against doing any predictions, I would bet money that you have language model running on your phone right now, very easily. You don't know about it, but if you do some translate something, or if you weren't like if you want to really go down the rabbit hole, unless we define large, your autocomplete on your phone is a language model anyway. So in that sense, I don't think we are that far off.
Yeah. I think there are already some models, and certainly are they then defined as large, but they do certain similar types of jobs that run on the phone. Yeah?
We've been touching this kind of subject before, but this is quite concrete. Who do you think should set the boundaries for the AI, government or private sector?
I think it needs to be a cooperation between the government, private sector, and just ordinary humans should have an input as well. But it's again, going back to that, like with open source software, it's just AI is just software 2.0. It's a software all over again. We need to treat it the same way, in my opinion.
It's an overall societal dialogue to decide what we believe AI should do and what it should not do. Not to just let it allow everything it can potentially do. And as Martin already said, governance should be part of that, the company should be part of that, and ordinary people as well.
We have last 5 minutes, so let's just try to do some more questions from the audience. I didn't expect you to be so interactive today, so thank you very much for that. Is it smart to improve something that can replace us in so many ways? So back to the ethical side of AI.
Yes.
We are doing it quick now.
Maybe it can help us to evaporate ourselves.
I don't have too much to add. I think I'm just going back to the same answers I had before, that of course it's smart to create something that's better than ourselves, as long as we can, be accountable with how we use it. It always comes down to that. How do we use the stuff that we have? Like you said in your keynote earlier today, like if you have a knife, do you you cut up vegetables or do you stab someone in the back? It's up to you.
I guess you might know that there were teachers against calculators in the 1940s, 1950s. There were big protests, mostly in the U.S. and things like that. So if you take the kind of the view that calculators have made math teachers redundant, then I also agree that we should improve the calculators.
I believe that's the important part of the question, that we're not talking about replacing us in general. We are talking about replacing us about dull stuff that we have to do, as you've mentioned before, Martin. Will be AI used mostly for civilians?
Well, it's used for that a lot in the wars going on in the world right now. Mostly, no. I mean, as I said before, it's being used a lot in social media and more things that we don't really think that we're interacting with AI, but we're doing it every day, and like the world's population or billions in the world population are interacting with AI, and that's not for civilians, it's for other stuff. Well, that's actually, if we're talking about TikTok, we can debate that, but yeah.
Will AI be able to reliably earn money for me on a stock exchange?
It will reliably lose you money on the stock exchange. I'll happily guarantee you that.
Do you think prompt engineering will be useless in the future and the AI will understand everything we want?
Well, I hope prompt engineering will be useless because I hate the way of developing models and software around the models with prompt engineering. It feels so old school in some way. If it will understand everything we want, then we talk about research in, like, should we be able to have some sort of EEG signals to the computer, or I mean, there's novel research right now where it's that you can, instead of having a device on your head, you can inject with nanotechnology, so it goes into your veins. But I don't know. That's a tough question for me.
Well, I think even between humans, it's difficult to find someone who understands everything we want, and even more so for an AI. And I think the current way of prompt engineering, it's just a norm, knowing how to interact with the tool so that it does what you want. Actually, human communication is very similar to that. There are certain, you say certain things that somebody does something or understands your intent or gives you a response or gives you something you need. And so I think it will become more and more natural, the interaction. It has already made a big leap with what we have now compared to how we were interacting with technology before. I'm sure it will further improve and we can even further, more naturally express what we want. But still there will be, like if you are on a certain subject, like if you want to create an image, then suddenly you say, yeah, I want to have it like in a Polaroid format with this and this lens and so on. So these specific vocabulary that belongs to the subject, you still need to be able to speak so that the result reflects what you want. Yeah, if a child just says, draw me a picture of a teddy bear, there are hundreds of variations on how you can do that. But if you say, well, I want to have a photo with that lens, if it would have been shot with that camera, that's how you instruct Midjourney to produce certain kinds of pictures. And that vocabulary you still need to be able to speak.
I have to apologize now, but unfortunately, our discussion has to end because we've reached the time, but I honestly didn't expect you guys to be so cooperative and to have so many questions. Next time we will have to make the discussion a bit longer so we actually can touch all of the subjects that we wanted to. But I would like to know, we are in quite an exciting era when it comes to AI. What do you guys believe we can expect in the near future to happen? Where, in which areas of our lives, in which area of the business, in companies and so on, can we see the biggest improvement in the following years?
There's a lot of areas. I think we will see little AI models a little bit everywhere. It's like we will interact with it a little bit everywhere, and we're starting to see that already. But like if we talk about something more big or life-changing, we're going to see something that's happening right now as we speak in San Francisco with self-driving cars. We're going to see a lot more of that. Yeah.
I categorically refuse to do any predictions, so I'll only tell you the things that are happening already right now, and you might not know about. I think language models, or whether there will be large and small, will end up being something like calculators over words. So the same way we had calculators that would be able to very quickly sort of sort through a large large formula that you had to compute, we will be able to do similar things on top of words, and in that sense, it will end up being another tool in the toolbox more than a. I don't really like the hype, so it's going to be sort of a standard way of doing some tasks, some things that we really don't think possible. And I do think that the even things like Hugging Face, which may or may not be a startup at this point, will help with this proliferation, and will help with the fact that we will be able to make use of it on a daily basis. So I'm actually looking forward to the future, if that was the question.
Yeah, I believe it will serve as a better interface to everything technology in the future, and so being applied in a multitude of areas, making it easier for us to interact with it and control it and get to the outcomes we want from it.
Many questions we had today were touching ethical side of the thing, and I would like to finish with, on that note as well, Matthias had a wonderful thing that you said in your keynote in the morning. I wrote it down, and I wrote it down the wrong way, so I would love you to correct me as well, because I love that exchange. You said that AI will change our lives forever, and it's only up to us how. What's the thing I got wrong?
Yeah, I explicitly, because initially we had that sentence like that, but I rephrased it very intentionally to say, with Gen AI, we will change our lives forever. Because it's us who are in control. It's us who actually use the tool, have it in our hand. So it's not something that we passively perceive and we can't do anything about it. It's up to us to change the world to the better using the tool. And that's my ask to everyone here in the room, very capable students, leaders of tomorrow that are here studying at the university, or some people from the business that also joined us, to actively pursue that journey and use it to create a better world for all of us.
I think this is the best way to end this discussion. Thank you very much for everyone who was there with us, either online or watching us on YouTube. Thank you for all your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to answer them all. Thank you. Have a great day. And thank you, Matthias, Martin, Marek. It was a lot of great information, very useful, and it was fun. I hope for you as well.